Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about how to do a single. Now, if you haven't already looked at the starts and stops exercise or the singles exercise in the rifle technique exercises playlist, go ahead and check those two videos out. This is going to help you with your singles. For our technique tosses, I'm just going to go ahead and start off at a left flat, and we're going to go ahead and do a quarter dip. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a dip, 5 and 6 and 5, 6, 7, dip, dip. And without subdivision, 5 and 6, 5, 6, 7, dip, dip. Now it's really important that as I am taking my dip, that I am thinking about really squeezing my rifle and making sure that all of my muscles are engaged. For singles, the release point is going to be your belly button. So you're just going to turn your wrist over. So let's go ahead and try one. 5 and 6, 5, 6, 7, out. And when I'm catching with my right hand under and my left hand over. My thumb is going to be wrapped on the neck of the rifle, and my left hand is going to be right on the edge of the nose. As I go into the release, my right hand is pushing all the way down. So my hand is going palm to pant, it's touching off there, and then as the rifle is rotating around, my right hand comes out to meet the rifle, the and count before the catch. So for singles, we count it as 1, 2. So on count 2, I'm catching. On count 1, I'm pushing down. My right hand is pushing down all the way. On 1 and, I'm starting to bring my hand to meet the rifle. And on count 2, I'm then squeezing the rifle with that right hand to go ahead and stop it. So let's go ahead and take that again. 5 and 6, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. Now you want to make sure that whenever you're doing a single, if you're catching it on a half, like so, then that means you're either over or under rotated. So if I were to under rotate, that's what that would look like. If I were to over rotate, that's what that would look like. So if you have any questions on your singles, are you over or under rotating, go ahead and make sure that when you're taking your singles that you're recording them. That's going to be the best way for you to figure out your rotations, because you can slow it down. And then you can go from there. Now, if you're under rotating, it's either because your placement of your hand on your gun is too far down. If your hand is over towards the swivel and you were to go and take this toss, it would be really slow out of your hand. If your left hand were to be closer towards the bolt, it would be super tight and it would feel really uncomfortable. You want to make sure that your left hand is in between the swivel and the bolt at left flat, just like it would be for a left drop spin. That's going to be really important that you use that technique whenever you're tossing, because if you move your hand further towards the nose, it's going to take a long time for your rifle to get to where it needs to go. Now, the other thing that you could be doing is you could be doing what I like to call a swing dip. This is, instead of rotating your left wrist and snapping your right hand like to the dip position, a swing dip would be you pulling that left hand towards your right hip, which means that you're not going to really lock in your dip. So instead of thinking about just turning your wrist over and lifting up the rifle, you're giving it more energy and more momentum and more variables for it to release and for it to go wrong. So you want to make sure that whenever you're doing this toss, again, you're looking at yourself in a video, but also you're looking at your dip. Do I have a really nice dip? Am I at a nice shoulder hip angle? Is my left hand by my left hip? Is my right hand right at my shoulder? Is my elbow down? Am I is my rifle in line with my forearm when I'm going into this dip? And then from there, you want to make sure that you think about your release point. Now, we're releasing at our belly button, so we don't have to worry necessarily about our elbow to wrist right now. When we do higher tosses, you will have to worry about your elbow and wrist alignment. But for this lower toss, you're just turning your wrist over. And for my technique, I like to have fingertips up as opposed to out, just because that kind of reinforces the idea that you need to make sure that you're not lifting your elbow. You always want to make sure whenever you're tossing that your wrist is going to be higher than your elbow. That's super, super important. So we talked a little bit about our dips. Now let's talk about our release. If we release to the right, then our toss is going to go to the right. If I release too far to the left, then my toss is going to go the opposite direction, and so on and so forth. When you do this, you really want to think about that alignment of your wrist being in line with your elbow, and then you being in this track, which is like just a hair outside of your shoulder. So you want to make sure that you're maintaining that area and you're thinking about being in that column area. That way your placement isn't incorrect. So let's take that one more time. 5 and 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 and 2. And then we want to make sure that as we're going into that catch, that we're not dropping our butt down. Whenever I'm going into this catch, I want to think about lifting up and squeezing and pulling apart on my rifle, and this is going to help me have a strong catch. If you are somebody who struggles on this, what you can do is you can think about having a port catch. If you think about having a port catch, 9 times out of 10, what will happen is you'll actually catch it in that flat area, because what you're doing is mentally you're thinking about overcorrecting, and so your body is still getting used to what's going on, and so then it's going to just do it the right way. So if I were to think about the port catch, this is a little bit lifted, as you can tell from the previous one, but that's the idea of, okay, so if I am dropping my butt because I'm either over-rotating or I need to work on my catch, let me go ahead and overcorrect myself. Then after you do the second toss with the overcorrection, what you want to do is you want to take it one more time and you want to find that happy medium. And so whenever you're doing tossing, my best advice to you is first, before you do anything, take your tosses 3 times. Take it, see if you need to correct anything. If you do overcorrect it, and then if that's fine, then find that happy medium. And then from there, your tosses should really be consistent, and you should be able to do the same toss consistently in a row. So make sure that you're taking that approach whenever you're working through your technique for a single. Now, the big thing with singles is whenever you're first starting off, you can have your rifle wobble in the air. That's just because you're either holding on to it too long and your hand is kind of like clipping it, or you could be rolling it over your hand because you're trying to pull that hand back. You want to make sure that from this low, like taco position, that when you open up, that your fingertips are up and they're closed, and you're trying to get it out of your hand as quickly as possible. This is going to help you. And then the other thing that's going to help you is making sure that whenever you are in that dip, that you're really thinking about squeezing your fingertips against the pad of your hand, that meaty part. And doing that, you're essentially pinching your rifle just like you would on like a saber, so that you know that it's not going to wobble. So that's super, super important, so make sure you're thinking about that. Let's go ahead and take one more single. 5 and 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 and 2. And that's how you do a single.